perfect transition. The one, the only. We get the Braden. Braden has lived and died this format so far.
It's
so
true.
much so, I got to shout out the Moneyball background. This is A+.
You know, it's
important. Love it so much. So Braden, this past weekend, I don't know. Did you played in the opening weekend for the Encounter event, right?
Yeah.
And then this past weekend, you played in the Inking Invitational, 128 players. You found yourself in top 4. And then we had another smaller PPG event where you found yourself in top 4 again. So you played a lot of this format already. And you've, I think you were the first person that I had spoken to that were like, I think this is my favorite format. So I wanted to get you on to kind of like just discuss that. And I felt like it made a lot of sense to bring you on. Listen, for anyone that doesn't know Braden, you don't ever watch one of our Encounter streams, because when we're at the Encounter, Braden is on the stream longer than I am some days. So
yeah.
How are you doing, Braden? How are you?
I'm great. I wrote up a list while I was waiting. I wrote up a whole list of all my takes. So if I can have 5 minutes, I'll read them off, or I can
listen. I got a drink.
Awesome.
I'm just gonna
awesome.
Listen, if you want to just go hot take it, okay, we can do this.
I don't even think these are hot takes. Oh wow, look at me. Me and Jonah Hill, Brad Pitt. What a great night. All right, I'm gonna start off
ready
here.
now.
There are 2 categories of decks. There are just a ton of decks. That's where I'll start. There's a ton of decks. And there's 2 categories I put these are like, there's the best decks, and then there's like the decks that are really good, but they're not like the best decks. Okay. So I have 5 decks in the best deck, like the best deck category. It goes in no order. I started with Green Steel because I love Green Steel, but sure. Green Steel, Steel Song, Kurt Mines, Blue Red Shark, Green Purple Tempo. In my mind, that's my take. I'm not an expert always. Those are my take. But that's 5 different decks of 4 different colors, and all have very different play styles. So the aggro Steel Song, the Mines deck is an Amber Steel aggro deck. The Steel Song deck is Steel Song. We all kind of know what that deck is. It's like a mid-range control deck, but it's also an aggro deck. It's kind of insane. Yeah. There's the Green Steel discard deck. There's Shark, which is like kind of a controlled tempo deck. It's ramp deck. It's kind of weird. Then there's Green Purple Tempo, which is like just a classic tempo deck. I think all those decks, if those were all the best deck in the format, I think the format's maybe Steel Song and Green Steel aren't the case. But the Mines deck, the Shark deck, and the Green Purple deck, when those decks are like the best decks, I think the game is like perfect. Like that's a great place to start. So now we have the next tier down. I might explain why I put them here in more detail. Items / Oswald. So there's a local Christian who got 9th place at the Inc. He went undefeated, and then in the last round, his breakers were so bad he had to play instead of being able to draw twice, and he lost to Kolpos. So if there had not been draws earlier in the tournament by other players, he would have made top 8. And he was playing a 32 item Oswald deck. I've played a bit of it online. I think it's very good. That's my first one. Green Purple Discard and Green Purple Diablos. Those are actually 2 different decks, but they share like 50 cards or 40 cards roughly. In Europe, this is a really popular archetype, and they love Green Purple there. I think it's all very good. I've played a lot of it. Next we have Blurple. Again, just like a really popular deck. I know in Canada, Pandemonium has been playing it and just got second in a very competitive tournament. Purple Steel. This won a European tournament last weekend. I think it was the best of 2 tournament, but still great showing. I saw it all weekend. Red Purple Evasives. I lost to this in top 4, and I generally think when there's a lot of Diablo stuff going around, Red Purple Evasive is just very good. I lost to just them playing a castle and a Be Prepared, and like that's still pretty good right now, I think.
Yeah.
Finally, Dogs. That was a red-blue Oswald deck. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought you said that. I thought you said red blue.
I might not have.
Okay.
I might have missed it.
I guess I have information. I know. I watched.
We know
it
Christian.
night, so.
So yeah, it's a red blue items deck specifically.
Yeah.
It plays Oswald and it plays Sisu and it plays Coil. And it plays no ramp. So that's like the cool thing about it is it just tries to like curve out Coil, Sisu, Scrooge, and then just sort of like turn the game sideways from there.
Sick.
And then Dogs. And then I have just a little bit more. I know I've already said a lot.
Loving it.
I have 3 categories of reasons why I think all these things are why the format's great.
Okay.
The best players are winning. If you look at Inc. and you look at the Toronto event and you look at every other event I think I've seen in the last 2 weeks, usually the person who's the best player in that tournament wins. And what that means is that these decks all have play into each other. The game is not like, well, I brought my scissors and you brought your rock. It is like, I brought my scissors and I actually have this thing that's like really good against rock if I like incorrectly, and there's just game to be played. Also in deck building, like whether or not because all these, I'll get there later. I read a whole section on this, but there's deck building options. You get to make a lot of deck building decisions.
Well, you just said like the idea that you are considering to be 3 Emerald Amethyst decks, like because of that 10 card difference in one of them, is like that's just proving of like how intricate those kind of decisions are. Same thing could be said about Ruby Amethyst, like even Amber Steel, like there's definitely 3, maybe 4 different Amber Steel decks as well. Yes. So there's without a doubt a lot of a lot of little itty bitty cog points in deck building and like in the metagame prediction that you're in, that can reward you.
My next point is multiple colors, which is what we're talking about, have multiple decks.
Yeah.
And so I point out 3 color combinations in particular: green, purple, amber, steel, and red, blue. Each of these decks have like different archetypes that exist within their color combination. And why is that good? First, it makes your games less predictable. You see your opponent ink a Diablo, you actually don't know what's happening. Are you playing against discard? Are you playing against green steel? Are you playing against a tempo deck that just doesn't even play the discard stuff? That's kind of interesting. If you are someone who owns the green purple cards, right? Like let's say you own everything green purple, you own green purple discard, green purple tempo, you can play different kinds of Lorcana at a high level, despite the problems we talked about earlier where someone doesn't own every color combination. You might be one of those people. And if you can play 3 different decks that play distinctly and own like 100 cards total, I think that's like a really good thing. And then the top 8s are super diverse. As consequence of that, I think.
Okay, I don't want to say all the time. Like doing my research last weekend, I know there was 2 different events that were incredibly slated one way, and I'm just like, wow. Like the event that you talked about with Pandemonium, Heart, and Dale, there were 4 Emerald Steel and 3 Sapphire Amethyst in that top 8. So like, this is not the case.
Although I will say, even one of those green steel decks is totally different than the others.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Like so, even in green steel, you see some of that. And
my final point, one of those where I'm like, wow, what a weird event.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's just Toronto, right? You're looking at one city in one country. My final point is the set 8 cards are generally not strictly better than the cards they're replacing. So like if you're putting Rhino in your deck, you're probably cutting Robin Hood, let's say. Let's say that's a common cut. Or you're cutting Lawrence in the case of the Mines deck, right? This is one card cutting it. To be fair, I guess it's better than both these cards. But the Amber Steelsong deck might be playing Lawrence still, but now it's playing Rhino. And the Mines deck is cutting Lawrence and now playing Rhino, but it was never on the Robin Hoods. Beyond the Horizon, that's a card everyone was like super afraid of. I don't even play that in my green steel deck. I don't think it's good enough. However, there are so many top 8s from this last weekend telling me that I'm wrong, and like I don't think I'm strictly wrong.
Yeah, I don't know that it's fair to say that you're wrong, as more as that it's fair to say it won Southside Gaming's tournament and it was a deck list for everyone to go and look at. And there's a very good chance that, like you, a lot of people got, we'll get to the point where I also don't think the card's very good. I think the card's like super like high risk and not even that much high reward. Like I'm just not a fan of the card overall. So there's a good chance that most people just looked at that deck list and say, oh, I'll just put this together. I'll play. I'm a green steel player. This is great. Who cares?
But
we'll see how if that sticks.
We have 3 months, right, with these cards basically. And so like the more cards that are like we can debate over for 3 months and then at the end be like, oh, we're all wrong. This was the best thing to be doing the whole time. Like the judgment of the format isn't going to be based on like the week 12 deck. It's going to be based on like the week 8 deck, right? And the longer we can go with like us being sort of like, well, I don't know, it's better to play Diablo and green purple or not. I don't know. Pull the lever is really good. We've agreed on that in set 8. By set 8, we might agree on that, but we might not agree whether or not Diablo is the reason that card's good. So like, I'm just optimistic that there's just a ton of landing room or whatever runway. There's a ton of runway on this format.
That's what's one of the most interesting things about it too, is that we haven't had a DLC in forever, right? So we have not had a truly large tournament of data to come out. It's always just these smaller localized events, and like you said, on average, we've been seeing the best players continue to be successful in them. So the idea that now we even have worlds that is not this core constructed format, it's like it's just stretching it even further to where we get this like truly giant piece of information about it. And I think that that's also a pretty crazy factor when you really think about it, is that we really have spent the last 4 months playing with these cards in like without the highest stakes to be played for, if that makes sense. And I always find that to be kind of interesting as well. But it's really, I love how you kind of come out when you're like, listen, like I think that there are 5 decks that we can call tier 1, which is kind of insane. Like
Yeah.
I don't know that we could ever really honestly say that before. So if this is something that we have seen, and honestly the data does showcase it, like you said, I think majority of the decks this past weekend of the list that like were out there, more than half of them won a tournament. So like there were probably 6 or 7 different decks that won a tournament of 50 players or more so far in this metagame. And I think that is kind of just speaking to your point of like, hey, maybe it's a little bit better than you like most people think it is.
Yeah, and there's also like regional differences, right? Like if you're in Europe, there might be 4 decks, and if you're in the United States, there might also be 4 decks. Is something to think about, right? Like at Inking, sorry, it's hard to say. There were basically, I was the only green steel player, I think, in top 16 maybe, and there were not that many green purple players either. Kolpos was also one of the only ones. But then when you take it in the full context of like, well, when we look at Canada and the tournament that happened there, and we look at Europe, Emerald Steel and Green Purple are clearly tier 1 decks, right? So, yeah, if your full picture of the world is in Maryland, sure, the metagame doesn't look as diverse as it when you start to like get access to the information that exists in Europe and other places in North America.
I have a question for you there, right? And this is kind of a conversation I've been having a little bit like through the week. How much do you think the local metagame is affected by the particular player there, right? Like, we know in the Northern Toronto area, like Dale is the Emerald Steel guy. How much of him playing Emerald Steel really just showcases to everyone there, like, oh, like Dale's so good with this deck. Like, it's got to be one of the best decks. So, like, why? Like, I'm gonna bring that deck too, and I'm just gonna try and do my best with it as well. And the same thing for Pandemonium Heart. Like he's been playing Sapphire Amethyst for a little while now, and he's been really talking it up. Like, so these 2 premier players end up in the finals of their localized event. Same thing about, Emerald Amethyst. Like, this is a deck that Artifax has been known for forever, so like over in Europe, it always feels like that is a deck that gets way more love and way more, limelight on those streamed events than it ever does in America. So like, does that play that role as well? Like, if you have this person in your local area that you look up to, you're like, oh, well, if they say this is it, shouldn't I just believe them? How much do you think that plays a role in kind of like that localization of events?
I think it depends on the deck and depends on like the stuff that happened in set 1, honestly. Like in set 1 of Lorcana, the North American players loved Steel Song.
Yeah.
And that means that the people who live here who have played Lorcana for 2 years have all played Steel Song. You would really struggle to find that many North American players who have never played Steel Song. Where in Europe, I actually bet it would be significantly easier to find someone who's never played Steel Song. And so if the person, like that set 1 decision that for some reason North Americans like Steel Song, it just has knockoff effects that go off forever, right? And so I think it's kind of like that. I mean, like I'm a big Green Steel player. Yeah, that's fair.
There it is.
I'm always going to be wrong sometimes.
It is.
But
proven wrong immediately.
Yeah, I'm just super wrong. I play a lot of Green Steel. I'm known for playing Green Steel, but I hate teaching people to play Green Steel. So no one near us, I haven't taught anyone near us to play Green Steel. So I think like also it's like a personality thing too. Like, do you offer coaching? Do you have a testing group that's like local? Like I have a testing group, and like everyone in that testing group, not everyone, a lot of people in that testing group have played Green Steel, where my locals really haven't. So there's definitely a social aspect to it for sure. I just don't know how much of it is like the early stuff versus the current stuff,
Right.
Yeah. I think to
Yeah.
almost like not to steal it or anything, but to kind of add on to that, I think it also like some, I think it depends on like the level of players too locally as well. I think like more players that are like higher level, I guess you could say, if we're going to use that kind of generic ballpark term, tend to like diversify into a lot of different decks. Usually they like to try a lot of different things. While more maybe medium core players usually like to stick to one deck just based off familiarity, right? I don't like to use those terms at all, but you know what I mean, right? Like I know
Yeah.
like locally we have a ton of Steel Song players, in Minnesota, but like no one plays green decks here in Minnesota. It's absolutely wild to me that I don't see any green decks like ever. Maybe it's just because we have so much Steel Song, but then you can debate like that should maybe be a good field for some of those green decks,
Yeah.
But but it's just like you said, it comes down to familiarity as well, and like the players that in that local area that are kind of willing to diversify as well.
I think also it's like, where are these people coming from? So like, I live in Pennsylvania, right?
Hmm.
And I used to live in Reading, and Reading has a huge Yu-Gi-Oh scene. And so
Yeah,
those Yu-Gi-Oh players would tend to pick up blue decks. I am
sure.
not a Yu-Gi-Oh
Yeah,
player,
I
so I
can see
don't
that.
quite understand why that is. But
I get that.
um, and so like, if I don't know how big Yu-Gi-Oh is in Europe. I honestly have no idea. But um, and like, for example, the Rat was a Yu-Gi-Oh player, and he's like a huge Green Soul guy. So it doesn't, like, it's not a rule, right? But I could imagine, like, if you had a city, um, maybe like uh, a somewhat like medium-sized city in Europe, and there was a huge Yu-Gi-Oh scene, and everyone's like off it, and they start playing Lorcana because the events are kind of insane in terms of like the payout, and all these people kind of pick up the same deck, and for some reason in that city, the Yu-Gi-Oh players decide they want to play green purple. Uh, then yeah, I guess like that's how it would happen, right? But it's going to be different in every community, and I think I can't explain why it is one way or the other. You know?
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. So you played in both events this past weekend, and just to give everyone like a little bit of an idea, they're probably like max 3 hours apart, I would say, maybe closer than that a little bit. And I remember hearing you in on Sunday saying that the rooms were completely different.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that idea. Like, hey, we're in the 128 player tournament on Saturday, and on Sunday we're in this 26 player tournament, and like the room is literally completely different. What do you think is like attributing to that factor?
Well, I mean, like, so people see the results from the day before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are some people who are just going to play whatever won that tournament. So there was a lot of diggy hole where the day before there was like basically none. I had
Sure.
actually tried the weekend tournament prior. I'd actually played a diggy deck with no mines. Basically, I showed up with like just an aggro Amber Steel
Right.
list. I lost in top 8 to Steel Song and was like, never again. Um, so I think people learn from that. Information travels super fast now, like
Yeah.
hourly. Like, I would be shocked if the Sunday tournaments weren't affected, despite the fact it's only like 5 hours earlier.
Right. Like if information went out at 9 p.m., it's 3 a.m. there. They still have it by the time they wake up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, like, whenever you have a big group of people and you randomly pull from that group, you're just going to get bias, right? There's like going to be some selection bias, like
Yeah.
people who live in this area, or people who have time on Sunday, or maybe it's people who couldn't play yesterday, so they're playing today. Or we had people from New York, which is like also 3 hours away.
Yep.
So like they weren't going to drive 6 hours, but they would drive 3, and they were all on Steel Song. Stuff like that contributes to it. I generally sort of expect that if I play in a Saturday tournament, the Sunday tournament is going to be pretty different. If you remember the DLC Vegas, that was when I was at. People changed their decks last minute because of the results from the Friday side event, and so
I remember that.
yeah, I played Red Blue in that tournament. I did really well. Played Red Blue the next day, did horrible. Those things
Yeah.
are probably not as related as I'm making it sound, but
Sure,
like,
sure.
I'm sure people were much more prepared for me after like a whole bunch of Red Blue players did really well on Friday.
Yeah, it's similar to the like the Star City Games circuit, like when it was like, awesome. You'd have 3 days of events, and you'd have like 3 days of adaptations, and you'd just be like, through the day. At this current period of time, we're kind of going back to where maybe not every player had access to like all of the things that they probably do now. so it's not as prevalent. Also, Star City was not posting deck lists. I mean, they still don't post deck lists.
Yeah,
so-
but you would see like
you would see the
people
room. You
post
would see
on
the room.
Twitter, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is the deck I went X and O with today.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
here's the list. Can't wait for top 8 tomorrow or something. And
Yeah.
then like you show up to
Yeah.
like the side event. Usually be a different format, but there might be some other thing going on, and you would see like the consequences of that.
Very fair. Before we transition here and bring on our next guest, kind of just like that, I don't know, give me that like that 30-second elevator speech why people should be a little bit more happy for Core Constructor right now.
I just think there's a ton of things to be doing, and there are a ton of people out there like trying to innovate and discover new technology and new opportunity.
Mhm.
And that's like a really fun thing to participate in. And there are enough stores right now, at least today, running
Mhm.
events that you get to like test that. Like
Mhm.
I played basically Diggy on Saturday of last week. I played Green Steel on Saturday of the week. Sorry, like 2 weeks ago I played Diggy. Last
Right.
week I played Green Steel, and then on Sunday I played Green Purple at Tempo. And this next weekend I have like a 5K coming up, and I don't even know what I'm going to be playing. I might play Red Blue Items. That's the deck I've been practicing at least. So like, there's not a lot of formats I've played where I don't feel like I'm throwing, not just playing the same deck every week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's also to note, right? You've been here for a very I think since pretty much day one, right? Where you have all the experience playing with all these different decks now. So like, yes, set 8 comes out and we have some new tools and like that's great, but you've gotten to the point of, I've played all of this. So like on any given Sunday, I can just kind of do what I want. And that's
yeah,
my favorite moment of Sunday was definitely Anthony is like, hey, does anyone have any Peter Pan Shadow Finders? And you're like, yeah, I have one. He's like, okay. He's like, cool. And you literally open up your little binder thingy and you go, oh, I have 2. And he goes, oh, I'll take 2. And you're like, you're going to play 4 of those? And he's like, yeah. You're like, I can't even play Emerald Steel.
yeah. I would have changed decks on the spot. Like I would have was like, I just don't want to deal with this.
On the
If this is the
spot.
energy people are bringing today, I don't want
Literally,
to
yeah.
participate.
It
That's
was
exactly what I
so
said.
funny. He's like, if he were going to bring 4 Peter Pan Shadowfinder energy, I'm out. Like, I'm out.
Yeah, this is literally what I did.
It was very good. It was a very good moment.
So yeah,
all right. So, yeah, go
I just
for
want
it.
to say I had one more thing I wanted to say real quick, and it lost me. But basically, I think the format is rewards like picking different decks and adjusting and trying different things, and that's like maybe the most fun thing. And this is your last. I remember now. This is your last chance to play cards together before a rotation.
True.
Like it
We're
might
gonna
not
touch
be
on
worth
this
it for you
later,
to
I
like
promise.
learn a brand new deck, but like if you've been wanting to try out Purple Steel, this is like the last time you're gonna get to play Let Storm Rage on and Rabbit in the same deck. I can tell you that. Probably not gonna
Sure.
happen again, or whatever.
Yeah.
So